He laughed at her answer. Out loud, on national television, in front of 200 people in the studio and millions more at home, he repeated his own wife's answer back in a mocking voice and invited the whole country to laugh along with him. Nobody laughed. And then Ray Calloway did something no host has ever done on that stage. He didn't argue with the man. He didn't lecture him. He turned around, pointed at the game board, and let 100 ordinary Americans do it for him, answer after answer, round after round, until the board itself had said what 40 years of dinner tables never could. Before we get into it, hit that like button and subscribe, because this channel brings you a story like this every single week, and this one has an ending you will not see coming. Now let me tell you about Donna. Donna Kepler was 63 years old, and she talked exactly the way she had talked her whole life, which was the way people talk in Beckley, West Virginia, where she was born. Plain, slow, full of porches and casseroles and sayings her mother had said and her grandmother before that. For 26 years she had owned a little flower shop in a suburb outside Columbus, Ohio, and people didn't come to Donna's shop just for the flowers. They came because Donna would look at a nervous young man buying roses and say, "Tell her the truth, and hand her these, in that order, and be right." They came because when your mother died, Donna knew which flowers to send and, more important, what to write on the card. Half the town had cried in that shop at one time or another. Donna called it plain talk, and it was worth more than anything in the cooler. Her husband did not see it that way. Her husband had spent 40 years wincing. Stan Kepler was 66, a retired high school principal, 31 years of straightened ties, corrected grammar, and hallway authority. Stan was the kind of man who said well, actually the way other men say good morning. He read 2 newspapers, quoted studies at cookouts, and had never in living memory let a factual error cross his path unescorted. And his very favorite error, the one he had been correcting since 1984, was his wife. He had a whole routine. Everyone who knew the Keplers had seen it. Donna would say something at a dinner party, something plain and warm and true, and Stan would get the little smile and glance around the table to collect his audience and repeat what she'd said back in an exaggerated country drawl. The Voice. He'd been doing The Voice for 40 years. He did it at their own wedding, during his toast. He did it in front of their daughter's college roommates. "That's my Donna," he'd say, patting her hand. "Simple pleasures." And Donna would smile the way you smile when you've been the punchline so long you've forgotten the joke ever needed your permission. Marcy could tell you the exact day she stopped finding it funny. She was 11, and her mother had said something at a church potluck, a small kindness about somebody's casserole. And her father did The Voice, and the table chuckled, and Marcy watched her mother's face do the thing it did. Nothing. Absolutely nothing, held perfectly in place. 11-year-olds aren't supposed to recognize discipline when they see it, but Marcy did, and she spent the next 26 years wondering how much practice it takes to make your face do nothing while a room laughs at you, and never once got up the nerve to ask. Here's what made it strange if you knew where to look. Stan Kepler was from Beckley too. Same town, same hills. He and Donna had grown up 4 streets apart. But in 1979, a 19-year-old Stan had stood up in a freshman lecture at a university up north, answered a question in the accent he was born with, and watched a professor pause, smile thin, and say, "Let's try that again in English, Mr. Kepler," while a hall full of students laughed. Stan never told anyone what that did to him. What he did instead was go home and kill his own voice. He flattened the accent syllable by syllable in his dorm room mirror. He rebuilt himself into a man no one would ever laugh at again, the corrector, never the corrected. He went back to Beckley exactly long enough to marry the girl from 4 streets over, the one who still sounded like home. And then he spent 4 decades trying to sand her down the way he'd sanded himself, and calling it help. Their daughter Marcy, 37, an accountant, had begged her mother for years to say something. Donna's brother Dewey, 59, who still lived in Beckley and drove a propane truck and had never once apologized for a single vowel, had stopped visiting for a stretch in the 90s over The Voice. Donna made peace between everybody, the way she always did, and life went on. and when Marcy signed the family up for the family face-off. Because her mother had watched Ray Calloway at 4 o'clock her whole life, standing at the shop counter stripping thorns, Stan looked up from his newspaper and said the sentence that the internet would later turn into a meme viewed 80 million times. A survey show, Marcy? They ask 100 random people. Your mother will fit right in. He meant it as an insult. It turned out to be the single most accurate prediction of Stan Kepler's life. The Keplers drew the Tran family of Garden Grove, California, 3 generations, grandma to grandkids, quick and funny and impossible not to love. The podium order on the Kepler side ran Stan, Donna, Marcy, Dewey, and Marcy's husband Cole, and before the cameras rolled. Stan gathered his family like a faculty meeting and explained that the key to the game was thinking like the average person, which he said the way other people say thinking like a raccoon. Ray Calloway opened the show the way he had for 22 years, and the first face-off question set the tone for everything that followed. Name something people say they miss most about the old days. Donna hit the buzzer first. She didn't even look like she was hurrying. Sittin' on the porch after supper, she said. Behind her, clearly into a live podium microphone, Stan Kepler sighed and said, "Here we go." The board said porch sitting/visiting, number 1 answer. 41 points. The audience whooped. Donna pressed her hand to her chest, delighted, and Stan, you can watch it in the clip. The moment the internet would later slow down and set to music, Stan rolled his eyes. Ray caught it. Ray catches everything. He didn't say a word yet. He just looked at Stan for one extra beat, the way a referee looks at a player after the first cheap shot, filing it. The Trans answered, the round played out, and when it came time for the steal, Stan took command of the family huddle. Overrode Dewey's suggestion, cheaper groceries, that's what people miss, it's economics, and delivered his answer to Ray with the crisp confidence of a man announcing a school closure. Ray, people miss civility. Public discourse. The board gave him the big red X, and the studio gave him the gentle AWWW that studios give. And Stan straightened his jacket the way men do when they've decided the survey was beneath them. That was the pattern, and it only got louder. Second round, name something you'd want with you on a cold night. Donna, a quilt your mama made. Stan, sideways, not quietly enough, just say blanket. Donna, it's blanket. The board, quilt/blanket, number 1, 38 points. And the screen actually flashed the word quilt first, which Dewey enjoyed so much he had to hold on to the podium. Third round, Stan buzzed in himself, gave a 3-part answer with the phrase studies consistently show in it, and struck out so fast that Ray, deadpan, said the line that would end up on t-shirts. Stan, the survey didn't read the study. There was even a moment, small, but the editors kept it, and thank goodness they did, where Ray leaned on the podium between rounds and asked Donna about the flower shop, and Donna told the story of the nervous young man and the roses, and tell her the truth and hand her these, in that order, and the audience sighed the way an audience sighs at a good wedding. And Stan, unable to spend even that minute unarmed, said, she gives that advice to everybody. Ray, it's not exactly customized, and 200 people turned and looked at him like he'd talked during the prayer. Ray just nodded slowly and said, worked on everybody though, didn't it, and moved on, and the temperature of the room dropped another degree in Stan Kepler's direction. By the halfway mark, the scoreboard told a story so lopsided it was almost rude. Donna had 3 number 1 answers. Stan had 3 strikes and 0 points. And a low current had started running through the audience. Because they'd seen the eye rolls, they'd heard the sighs, all of it caught on the podium mics, and 200 strangers were falling in love with Donna Kepler at roughly the speed her husband was losing them. Then came the question, the one in the title, the one everything else turned on. Name something people trust more than the internet. Donna won the buzzer again. Her hand was a blur by now, and she smiled that shop counter smile and said, their mama. And Stan Kepler could not help himself. 40 years of habit stood up in him before his judgment could reach for its coat. He turned to the audience. He collected them, the way he'd collected dinner tables since 1984. Spread his hands, and did the voice. The full voice. The exaggerated syrup-thick, hillbilly drawl he had spent 4 decades perfecting at his wife's expense. "Their maw, Ray. Their maw." He laughed at his own performance and shook his head. "Here on national television, Donna. Millions of people. Try to." He stopped there. Not because he chose to. Because of the silence. Nobody was laughing. Not one person in 200. The Tran family was staring at him. The grandmother on the Tran side had her lips pressed together in a flat line that needed no translation in any language. Marcy had gone crimson. Dewey had taken one slow step sideways, toward his sister. And Donna stood at the buzzer podium with her hands folded, smiling at nobody. Absorbing it the way she had absorbed it at her own wedding, and the sight of that practiced, fluent 40-year-old absorbing, did something to the room that Stan Kepler felt on his skin before he understood it in his head. Ray Calloway let the silence sit for 3 full seconds. Then he turned, unhurried, to the board. "Survey said." The board rang the bell and put it up in lights. "Their mom/mama. Number 1 answer, 61. The place did not cheer so much as erupt in vindication. People coming out of their seats, pointing at the board, pointing at Donna, and the Tran family applauded her from across the stage, and through all of it Ray Calloway stood perfectly still, watching Stan watch the board. And when the noise finally came down, Ray spoke, not to Stan, to the room, calm as a man reading scripture. 100 people, Ray said. That's who we survey. 100 ordinary folks. The kind that sit on porches. The kind with quilts their mama made. He let that land. 61 of them just stood up for her. How many you figure would have stood up for the impression? Stan tried to laugh it off. It's what 40 years of getting away with it teaches you. Ray, come on. It's affectionate. She knows I'm teasing. Tell him, Donna. Don't. Ray held up one hand, and it wasn't for Stan. It was for Donna, who had opened her mouth to do what she had done for 40 years, smooth it, excuse it, make peace so everyone else could stay comfortable. Ma'am, with respect. You've been telling people it's fine all afternoon with your face. You don't have to do it with your mouth, too. Then Ray turned back to Stan, and he did the thing that gave the episode its name. Stan, I'm not going to argue with you. Man argues with a wall his whole life. One more voice won't move him. So, I'm not going to say a word. He pointed over his shoulder with his thumb at the great glowing wall of the board. That thing is. Board, pull it up. And on the big screen, where survey answers usually live, the production truck put up the running tally, in the show's own font, for the studio and the cameras, and the eventual 80 million. Donna, 4 number 1 answers, 178 points. Stan, 0 points, 5 strikes. The audience read it, and the sound they made wasn't a laugh and wasn't a cheer. It was the sound a courtroom makes when the verdict gets read. Every time she opens her mouth, Ray said, 100 strangers stand up and agree with her. Every single time you've opened yours, that board has handed you a red X. All afternoon, that board has been trying to tell you something, Stan. It's been ringing bells for her and buzzing you since round 1. I didn't turn it against you. You did that. I'm just the first person in 40 years to make you stand still and read it. He walked 2 slow steps closer. You've been doing that voice a long time, I expect. Dinner tables. Weddings, maybe Marcy's face confirmed it for every camera. And I expect every time, some table full of polite people gave you the little chuckle. Because that's what polite people do. And you walked away thinking the room agreed with you. He gestured out at 200 silent faces. Well, here's your room, Stan. Biggest one you'll ever get. Millions of people. Your words. Do the voice again. Stan stood there. Go on. She gave a number 1 answer. 61 out of 100. Do the voice about it. I'll wait. And Stan Kepler, for the first time in 40 years, had no correction to offer, no study to cite, no performance to give. The board glowed behind Ray like a jury that had stopped deliberating, and into that silence came a voice nobody expected, in an accent thick as creek mud, from the far end of the podium. He can do it, Dewey said. He used to have it natural. Every head turned. Stan went white. White the way a man goes when the one door he's guarded his whole life gets opened by his brother-in-law on national television. Dewey, Stan said, don't. 4 streets over from us. Dewey went on, to Ray, mild as you please. Kepler boys grew up on Ewart Avenue, Beckley, West Virginia. Stan here talked just like me till he went up north to college. Come back one summer talking like the weatherman, and never went back to visit but the once, to marry the only girl in town who never laughed at anybody. He shrugged. Always figured that's why he does the voice. Man does an impression that good, he had to practice on somebody. My guess is a mirror. You could hear the air conditioning. Ray Calloway looked at Stan Kepler for a long moment, and when he spoke, all the flint had gone out of his voice, and what was left was worse, because it was gentleness. Is that right, Stan? Same town? A beat. Same accent? And Stan Kepler, 66 years old, 31 years of hallway authority, 5 strikes and 0 points, put both hands flat on the podium, looked down at them, and quit running. There was a professor, he said. His voice had dropped so low the boom had to dip for him. Freshman year, 1979, I answered a question in a lecture hall, and he said, in front of 300 students, "Let's try that again in English, Mr. Kepler." And they laughed. 300 people. 11 seconds. I counted it for years afterward, lying awake. 11 seconds. He breathed. I went back to my room and I stood in front of the mirror and I practiced until the boy from Ewart Avenue was gone. Flattened every vowel my mother gave me. And I promised myself nobody would ever laugh at me again, and the way you make sure of that, the only way is you get to the laughing first. You laugh at somebody else. Every room, for 40 years, I found the thing that could be laughed at and I aimed everybody at it before anybody could look at me. He finally raised his head and looked at his wife, and I married the thing that could be laughed at. On purpose. Because you were the only part of home I couldn't stand to leave behind, Donna, and then I spent our whole marriage doing to you what that man did to me. 11 seconds at a time. Because every word out of your mouth sounds like the boy I killed in that mirror, and I couldn't. I have never once been laughing at you. Not one time in 40 years. I was laughing at me. You just had my voice. The studio was silent the way a church is silent. Marcy was crying. The Tran grandmother had a hand over her mouth. Dewey looked at his brother-in-law like he was seeing him at last, after 40 years, 4 streets over. Donna Kepler unfolded her hands. "Stanley," she said, and the whole room learned in one word that nobody had called him Stanley since West Virginia. I always knew where the voice came from. A woman knows her own accent, even second-hand. She let that settle on him. I never minded keeping mine. It never once embarrassed me. Porches don't embarrass me. Quilts don't embarrass me. My mama does not embarrass me. What I minded, for 40 years, was being married to a man who thought loving me meant improving me. I don't need improving, Stan. I never did. 100 strangers around have been telling you that all afternoon. And then, because she was Donna, because she had spent 26 years knowing what to write on the card, she reached over and put her hand on top of his, on the podium, in front of everyone. But I'll tell you what I know that the board doesn't. That professor was wrong. There wasn't a thing in this world the matter with how you talked. And there's a boy from Ewart Avenue been waiting 47 years for one single soul to tell him so. So there, I'm telling him. Now let him out of the mirror, and let's go win this game. They won the main game 2 rounds later. Donna never cooled off, and when it came time for the big money round, Ray Calloway stood at center stage with his cards and made the arrangement that turned the last 10 minutes of that episode into television history. House pick, Ray announced. Donna plays, and Dewey plays. The crowd roared its approval, the 2 Beckley voices, the porch and the propane truck, side by side. Then Ray turned, slow and deliberate, to the man with 5 strikes, and Stan, I've got a job for you, since you enjoy performing your wife's answers so much. He beckoned him to the front and pointed up at the board. Tonight, you're my announcer. Every answer she gives, when that board reveals it, you're going to read it out loud to America. Her words, coming out of your mouth, one more time. Ray's eyes held him. With respect, this time, let's hear what that sounds like. So that's how they played it, and if you've never seen the clip, it is worth every one of its 80 million views. Donna went first and put up 119 points, and after every reveal, Stan Kepler stood beside the great glowing board that had spent all afternoon testifying against him, and read his wife's answers to the nation. A quilt. Number 1 answer. Her mama's kitchen. Number 1 answer. And somewhere around the third one, his voice stopped sounding like a principal and started sounding like a man in church. Then Dewey came out, needing 81, and was so purely, unhurriedly himself, he answered one question with duct tape, and when it rang the bell at number 1, he told Ray, fixes everything but him, and hooked a thumb at Stan, and even Stan laughed, that he cleared the number with a full 9 seconds left. Confetti, $20,000, the family piled in from the podium. And Ray Calloway, instead of wrapping it up, handed the moment one last piece of rope, Stan. Announcers got final words. Boards listening. Stan Kepler looked up at the board, the whole board, every glowing panel of the thing that had been against him all day, and then at his wife. And when he spoke, the flattened weatherman vowels were gone, and out of his mouth, on national television. For the first time since 1979, came Ewart Avenue, thick and unashamed and 47 years late. Number 1 answer, Stan said, in the voice his mother gave him. My wife. Always was. Survey didn't need to ask. That's the clip. That's the 15 seconds. A man mocking his wife's answer in the first act and reading her his surrender in his own buried accent in the last. While the board that convicted him lit up the both of them like a sunrise. The episode aired 5 weeks later, and the internet did what the internet does, except kinder than usual. The clip went around the world under the title The Board Knew. Survey says she's right became a phrase wives texted husbands, usually with no other commentary, and the husbands understood. The eye roll from round 1 got slowed down, studied, and turned into a masterclass that marriage counselors actually assigned. One therapist in Atlanta went viral herself explaining that the episode was the best public example she'd ever seen of contempt with a laugh track, and that the board had done in 90 minutes what she often couldn't do in 90 sessions. Make the mocker sit still and read the score. In the suburb outside Columbus, the flower shop got busy and stayed busy. People drove from 3 states, and they didn't come for roses. They came for plain talk, and they got it, same as ever, over the counter, in the accent of Beckley, West Virginia. The show had mailed the Keplers a print of the tally graphic. Donna, 4 number 1s. Stan, 0 points, 5 strikes, and Donna hung it behind the register, where Stan sees it every Saturday. Because every Saturday, the retired principal drives the delivery van. He talks to customers now in the voice he was born with, and here is the thing people notice. Nobody laughs. Nobody ever laughs. 47 years of armor against a thing that, it turns out, was never coming. The voice, the other voice, the cruel one, is retired. In its place there's a family rule now, invented by Marcy and ratified at Sunday dinner. Anybody mocks anybody's answer at that table, they're doing the dishes alone. They call it the Kepler rule, and the first person ever sentenced under it was Stan, in its first week, out of pure reflex, and by every account he got up without a word, washed every dish in the house, and came back and asked Donna to please finish what she'd been saying. That summer, for the first time in 19 years, the Keplers drove down to Beckley together. Stan stood on Ewart Avenue in front of a house that needed paint, and Dewey took a picture of him there that sits on the mantel now. And on the 4th of July, at the propane company picnic, in front of the whole town he'd spent a lifetime hiding from, Stan Kepler gave a toast, slow, plain, full of porches, and Beckley gave him back the only thing it had ever had for him, which was applause. Ray Calloway got asked about the episode for a solid year, and he always gave some version of the same answer. People think I turned the board against that man, he'd say. I didn't. The board doesn't take sides. The board is just 100 regular folks, telling you the truth at the same time. Most of us can ignore one person telling us the truth. That's what he'd been doing for 40 years, one dinner table at a time. Then Ray would smile. It's harder to ignore 100. So if the truth ain't getting through to somebody you love, don't holler louder. Get more people. Because that's what that Thursday proved, and it's why the clip will outlive everybody in it. A mocking voice only works in a room that plays along. The moment the room goes quiet, the moment the board lights up on her side, 61 out of 100, the joke doesn't just die. It turns around and looks at the man who told it, and it asks him where he learned it, and the answer to that question is almost always older and sadder than anybody at the table guessed. Donna Kepler knew that for 40 years and loved him anyway. The board just made it official. If this story got to you, do 2 things before you go. Hit that like button and subscribe right now, because there's another story like this every week and you don't want to miss the next one. And then think about the table you eat at, and whose answers get laughed at there, and try Donna's arithmetic. 100 strangers out of 100 deserve better than the voice, and so does the person sitting next to you. Survey says. Number 1 answer. Every time. YouTube description: he repeated his wife's answer in a mocking hillbilly voice and invited millions to laugh along. Nobody laughed. And then the board put her answer up at number 1 with 61 points. Ray Calloway didn't argue with him. He didn't lecture him. He pointed at the board and let 100 ordinary Americans deliver the verdict. Her 4 number 1 answers against his 5 strikes and 0 points, glowing on the big screen for the whole country. But when her brother revealed where the husband's mocking voice actually came from, a town in West Virginia and a lecture hall in 1979, the story turned into something nobody in that studio was ready for. Watch to the end. His final words as Ray's announcer, in the accent he buried 47 years ago, will stay with you. If Donna's story moved you, like this video and subscribe for more unforgettable family moments every week. Tell us in the comments whose answers get laughed at around your table and whose due an apology. Tags Ray Calloway, family face-off, husband mocks wife, wife vindicated on air. Number 1 answer, emotional game show moment, the board knew. Survey says she's right. Marriage story, respect your wife. Heartwarming stories for seniors, game show drama, West Virginia, family secret revealed. Emotional stories, family values, standing ovation moment. Inspirational story, thumbnail prompt, photorealistic AI render. 16:9 cinematic aspect ratio. Interior of a glossy TV game show studio, dramatic low angle from the contestant podium. In the foreground, a warm, dignified 60-something woman in a floral blouse stands with her hand pressed to her chest, eyes shining with vindication. Behind her, the giant LED game board blazes with a glowing number 1 panel and a huge, lit score of 61, casting golden light across the stage. To the side, the host in a gray suit points sternly at the board, while a red-faced older man in a blazer stares up at it, caught mid-grimace, hands frozen in a mocking gesture gone wrong. Dramatic cinematic lighting, deep blue and gold beams, lens flare, blurred audience silhouettes on their feet. A large American flag graphic glows on a side panel of the set. Bold text overlay in heavy white capital letters with red accent, he mocked her answer on top, and in bright green capitals at the bottom, the board said 1. High contrast, hyper-detailed, broadcast quality drama.